My MIL demanded to name MY baby? 3 wild Reddit r/JustNoMIL stories. Difficult family dynamics exist all over the world, but conflicts with mothers-in-law, in particular, often become a relatable topic that resonates globally. The 3 stories I'm about to share today are some of the most baffling and absurd examples, but amazingly, they are all based on true events. The first story is a family tragedy that unfolded one winter Christmas, stained by discrimination and favoritism. My ex-mother-in-law established a rule that all Christmas gifts for the grandchildren had to be under a $10 limit. However, there was a cleverly hidden exception to this rule: the children of her own daughter were completely exempt. She would lavish her daughter's kids with gifts like the latest electronics, designer clothes, and expensive toys. Even her son's adopted child was thoroughly excluded from family photos, justified by the mother-in-law's horrific logic that a child not from my bloodline isn't a real grandchild. That Christmas, I witnessed the favored grandson taunting his adopted cousin with a Nintendo DS. Having witnessed this injustice, the daughter-in-law decided she could no longer ignore the unfair discrimination and resolved to break the $10 rule. So, I made a point of buying the ostracized nephew the exact same Nintendo DS and several games to go with it. The moment the boy opened his gift, his face lit up with pure joy, and the mother-in-law shrieked before running to her room and slamming the door. She wailed that I had ruined Christmas, accusing me of deliberately breaking the rule just to embarrass her and pick on her other grandson. By her own choice, that was the last time she ever attended that hellish Christmas party. Shockingly, it seems there are actually mothers-in-law who believe they can't truly love their son's children because they were birthed by an outsider. Our second story is about a mother-in-law whose obsession with her own bloodline extended to the name of her yet-to-be-born grandson. My mother-in-law lives on a different continent, so we rarely see her, but she was known for her self-centered personality that left her with no real friends. One day, my husband called her to share the news of our first child and the beautiful boy's name we had chosen. Contrary to the couple's expectation of congratulations, the mother-in-law on the other end of the line flew into a rage, shouting that she disliked the name. "Mom, what are you talking about? We're the ones who get to decide our son's name." She went so far as to demand that she had the right to name her grandchild and insisted they change it to one of her choosing immediately. It was so absurd that I was in shock but also had to physically stop myself from bursting into laughter. Thankfully, the husband firmly shut down his mother's ridiculous demands on the spot, shielding his wife from the stress. The next morning, we received a text from her that just said, "Congrats on baby's name," and we couldn't help but laugh at her bitter surrender. Finally, we have a very short but comedic tale about the most effective way to get rid of negative energy. One day, my wife, my mother-in-law, and I were all in separate rooms of the house when I started to smell something burning. When I asked my wife what the smell was, she told me she was burning sage to get rid of the negative energy in the house. Just 30 seconds after that conversation, having heard nothing, the mother-in-law emerged and announced she was leaving, heading straight for the front door. I immediately burst out laughing at the perfect timing, and to this day, my wife still doesn't understand what was so funny. It seems that sometimes, the most troublesome problems can be solved in the simplest and most coincidental ways. Double tap the screen for good luck.